Thank you, Bill and Paula. That was lovely. Our opening words today are by Elizabeth Mount. A flame cannot be lit without a spark. A life cannot begin without the air. And we cannot begin to find ourselves without love. May we reach out to one another. May we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. In this spirit, let us worship together. I would now like to invite our Director of Lifespan Religious Education, Beth Curtis, to tell our story for all ages.
Thank you, Hannah, and good morning. Each of us brings our own special light to this room every Sunday and beyond. And each of us shines in a different way, but we embrace each other's light, not despite, but because it is different than our own. Because all of our light together makes this community shine bright. Sharing our light and welcoming each other's light is all part of belonging. This is nothing new to UU. In fact, I want to share a story today that explores this, one having to do with our UU history. It's called A Lamp in Every Corner, and it's illustrated by AI, so please forgive. I've been having fun with it. The Unitarian faith goes back to the 1500s, and way back then, the people of a little town in Transylvania were part of a wonderful community practicing a new faith called Unitarianism. So they longed for a place where they could gather together and be a community. So they decided to build a church on the hillside looking down upon a village. They worked day and night, each contributing their own skills to the construction. The stonemasons cut great blocks of gray stone to form the sturdy walls. The glaziers made tiny panes of glass and fitted them neatly into the windows with leaded lines. The foresters sawed tall beech trees into enormous beams, which were hewn for the ceiling. The carpenters carved a pair of wide-opening doors. A bell was brought from a faraway city and then hoisted with ropes up to the top of the tower. The weavers wove fine cloth for the altar table, and the lace makers trimmed it with lace. The smiths hammered thin bronze into shining oil lamps. When the building was done, the congregants gathered to add the finishing touches. And at the end of the day, when their church was finally done, all the people of the community stood back to admire their hard work. It gave them great pride because they all had contributed. "We will now eat," the village elder said, because everyone was hungry after a long day's work, and later tonight we will come back and we will pray. Everyone went down to the hillside to their homes and their suppers, all except for one family who brought their supper with them. They ate sitting on a hillside, admiring their new church. Now, after they had eaten, they went back inside, and one of the children said, "Oh, look how pretty the church is, but we haven't finished." "Oh, what do you mean?" said the parents. "There's no light, there's no lamps. The church will be dark when the people come back." "Oh, don't worry, little one. The light of the church comes from its people. You'll see." They rang the bell to call the people to worship. The sun had set behind the mountains. Yet in the growing darkness, tiny points of light came from many directions and moved steadily up the hill. Each family is entrusted with a lamp, little one. Each family lights its own way here. "Well, where's our family lamp?" the child asked. "Oh, right here." The many lights moved closer together and gathered into one moving stream heading uphill, growing larger and brighter all the time. As families entered the little church, it became ablaze with flickering lights that grew in every corner as congregants gathered to pray, to sing, and celebrate their new home. When the service was over, each family carried their lamps home, and with the flame lighting the way. The child turned to the parents and said, "So the light of the church comes from the people, but also the people take their light from the church, and we have that light every day?" "Yes, indeed," the parents replied. "And even when we're not in church, even when the lamp is not lit, we carry the light of truth in our minds and the flame of love and belonging in our hearts to show us the right way to be. That light will never go out." The light of truth and the flame of love from that Unitarian church on the hillside continued to grow and show them, and eventually us, the way. Now, this is a great story about how church communities like ours unite people and keep them connected. So in the weeks and months and years ahead, I hope we can joyfully share our unique lights together and create a greater light that will constantly renew our sense of love and belonging to this community.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hannalora Chapple, and I will be your youth worship leader this morning. Welcome to Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, or BBUUC for short. Whether you are a first-time visitor, reoccurring guest, or a member here, thank you for choosing to spend your Sunday with us this morning. We are so happy to have you here. Within this building, we are not simply individuals who worship, but a community. This is a group to find unexpected friendships, a group where the people can hold you high in your highs and hold you close in your lows. A group where we work together for the greater good of those around us and those far away. And of course, a place where we can love one another. I hope that you all have found that here, or will find that here today. If you are new here, we invite you to grab a name tag so that we may get to know you by name. And you can find those over by the entryway. And while you're there, feel free to pick up any information about our church or our denomination. If you are interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism, we also offer regular Learn About Us classes. After the service, please feel free to join us in the back of the sanctuary for coffee, snacks, and conversations. And at this time, I would like to remind everyone to make sure our electronic devices are silenced. And now, onto our opening hymn. I would like to invite our song leaders up in guiding us through our opening hymn, number 6, Just As Long As I Have Breath. We will be singing all 3 verses. At this time, please rise and body your spirit to sing our opening hymn. We recite our congregational covenant each Sunday to reflect and practice the mission of this community. Please read along with your covenant with me. The words are printed in your order of service. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and to practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. And now please rise in body or spirit to sing our call to worship. The words are also printed in your order of service. We light our chalice each Sunday as a symbol of our faith. I would like to invite Carol Hawkins up to light the chalice this morning. Our words today are by Eric Hepburn. We light this chalice to remind us love is in the center. As we grow and connect, mature, and deepen, love remains in the center. When we light, the truth burns, when the light of truth burns all else away, love remains. Thank you. Thank you, Bill and Paula. Each Sunday here, we have the opportunity to give to this church through our offering ritual, a chance to give generously and to share our love to this place, to all a safe space, and to many home. No matter how much you choose to give, it is greatly appreciated. And as we pass along the plates, please feel free to place your offering inside. If you prefer an alternative method, you can also visit our website at bbuuc.org and then click the donate link. There is also a QR code in your order of service. Whether you choose to give or not, I ask that you please partake in this ritual by passing the plate to the person next to you. I would like to invite David Ruslin and Judy Holmes up to pass the plates. And after the plates have made it back, please rise and body your spirit to sing our offertory hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life. Our speaker today is Elizabeth DeCoux. Elizabeth is BBUUC's animal chaplain, and she also serves as a board trustee and on the worship committee. Today, Elizabeth will present a sermon entitled Love and Belonging, written by Reverend Eileen Wiviott. Elizabeth, the pulpit is yours.
Thank you, Hannalora. Good morning. As Hannalora said, I will be reading a sermon today by Reverend Eileen Wiviott, who is the senior minister of the Unitarian Church of Evanston, Illinois. In the sermon, Reverend Wiviott speaks several times of her experiences in Evanston. So I thought it might be helpful to give a brief description of that city for any who aren't familiar with it. Evanston is a suburb north of Chicago on the shores of Lake Michigan. It is home to Northwestern University. The population of about 75,000 is described as racially diverse. I would suggest to you that Reverend Wiviott's experiences in Evanston could and perhaps are happening here as well. Reverend Wiviott begins. I have fond memories of those little candy hearts we used to exchange around Valentine's Day. Each one had a pithy expression of love. Do you remember those? Cutie pie, be mine, call me. They're sort of like the precursor to emojis or texting, except that they're written in sugar. I can appreciate the challenge of expressing love in such a sweet and concise way, but love is actually too big, too powerful, and too important to squeeze into such a tiny space. Defining love is difficult, perhaps even impossible, but we know it when we live it. Intimate or romantic love tends to get the most attention, but what captures my interest is the love that transcends and transforms in and through community. Love is at the center of our UU values, so we need to think about what we mean by a spiritual discipline of liberating love. My very favorite quote on love is by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said this: "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands in the way of love." Another quote that's helpful in understanding love comes from Valerie Cower in her book, See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. In the introduction to that book, Valerie Cower writes this: "Love is more than a feeling. Love is a form of sweet labor. Love can be taught, modeled, and practiced. This labor engages all our emotions. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price of love. Anger is what protects the beloved. And when we have reached our limit, wonder is the act that returns us to love." Close quote. Cower understands revolutionary love as a choice we make to labor for ourselves, for others, and even our opponents. And she insists we can only practice revolutionary love within the context of community. This kind of revolutionary love is showing up here in Evanston. Last Sunday after service, about 100 of us in the interfaith community joined Black historian Dino Robinson for a bus tour highlighting sites significant in Evanston's history. He pointed out the patterns and practices of racial discrimination and segregation in housing and education, hospitalization and recreation, as well as some of the history of this city's faith communities. The tour concluded at Shorefront Center Black History Archives. And then we headed to Beth Emmet Synagogue for small group discussions about the experience, what we learned, what we felt, and what we are called to do. Each group had 2 facilitators, one Black and one white clergy member or faith leader. Because I coordinated the co-facilitators, I paired myself with Pastor Carlos Moody of Faith Temple Church of God in Christ, where the Martin Luther King Day Interfaith Service was held last month. It has been a joy to work with and get to know Pastor Moody as part of a team planning these events. He is filled with love and expresses that love genuinely and freely, sharing his conviction that we are all one family. I didn't know this until just this week, but his congregation has traditionally been one of the most conservative, and I probably don't need to tell you that ours is one of the most liberal. Yet none of that has gotten in the way of our building trust and partnership. Our theologically and racially diverse clergy group is starting to share more deeply about what it means to pray together, to build interfaith cooperation together across differences in theologies and identities. I imagine there will come a time when we might feel the urge to say, you know what, this is too complicated, too uncomfortable, too messy. Let's just retreat and go back to our separate spaces. But I want to make the commitment to you and call all of us into the commitment to keep leaning into wonder, to stay in it for the long haul, to keep choosing and practicing revolutionary love, even when the going gets tough. Our next outing is coming up soon. We'll be going to the Lawndale neighborhood to learn more about the lasting impacts of redlining and housing discrimination. And we are talking about ways to keep these partnership building events going, growing lasting relationships that are life-giving, transformative, joyful, and filled with sweet labor. This kind of love is too big to put on a little pink candy heart. This kind of love is demanding and powerful. It calls us to show up again and again through discomfort as well as grief and rage and disappointment and despair. It demands that we understand ourselves to be one family, to never close our hearts to each other or give up on the possibility of redemption and repair, though our pain be sharp and our sorrow deep. Jess Reynolds, a poet and member of the UU Society of Sacramento, describes it well in their poem, Love is Calling. Love is calling for liberation. Love is hoarse from calling, her voice raw from the decades she has spent chanting at protests and speaking from pulpits and singing the songs of freedom. Love is weeping into a white candle she cups in her hands at a vigil for one more Black life lost, ripped away, gunned down, forgotten. She is holding the hands of a grieving mother and praying out loud for peace. This is where love shows up, where love has always shown up. She is tugging at our hands and sleeves, begging us to lay down our egos and take up our courage and dedicate our lives to justice. Thus ends the poem. My husband and I have been watching the 1619 Project. It is a 6-part series on Hulu that explores different facets of systemic racism and the insidious ways our country has been built upon and continues to prosper from Black labor. It is hard to watch, and it is beautifully done. One of the things I appreciate about it is that Nicole Hannah-Jones, the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who wrote the book and created the series, begins with the personal, intimate effects of racism in her life and her family, and then widens out to detail the pervasive and far-reaching impacts found in virtually every aspect of our lives, from democracy to music to healthcare and reproductive autonomy. White supremacy erodes the humanity of us all. But the other lesson of the 1619 Project is that revolutionary love in community gives people the tenacity to stay in the struggle and transcend the forces of oppression. Love calls us to show up, to act for justice, to resist the urge to turn away from painful truths or silence the voices of lament and outrage. Love is not easy or soft. It is not sentimental or anemic. It is, to paraphrase Dr. King, at its best, power correcting everything that stands against it and implementing the demands of justice. This kind of love can only be practiced in community. We need one another to challenge each other, to grow trust between one another, to say the hard things, and return to one another over and over. Author and educator, the late and beloved Bell Hooks, wrote about the obligation of belonging to one another in loving communion. Obligation is a word that might challenge some of our notions of independence and freedom, but I think we need to resist that. We do belong to each other, not in the way one person possesses another, but in the way that we are bonded in mutuality and interdependence. It is the call of our faith to tend these bonds, to move toward mutual well-being and connection in community. These movements can happen in small, seemingly inconsequential ways, and also in huge, life-altering ways. In her book, All About Love, Bell Hooks wrote, "Enjoying the benefits of living and loving in community empowers us to meet strangers without fear and extend to them the gift of openness and recognition. Just by speaking to a stranger, acknowledging their presence on the planet, we make a connection. Every day, we all have an opportunity to practice the lessons learned in community. Unlike other movements for social change that require joining an organization and attending meetings, we can begin the process of making community wherever we are. The other night, I attended the NAACP meeting at Second Baptist featuring Chief Stewart, Evanston's new police chief, answering questions about the department's plans for community policing. I arrived late and slipped into a pew toward the back, asking the woman sitting there if the seat was taken. She waved me in. As the event went on, someone offered an anecdote about their 82-year-old friend who, several times a week, responds to the call of her neighbor who owns a convenience store near a middle school. Apparently, this 82-year-old goes to the shop at her friend's request to deter after-school adolescent shoplifters by simply saying, "Hey, I saw that. You better put that back." The person telling the story, who happens to be a friend of mine, was suggesting perhaps more of our elders could be employed in this way. Now, I thought it was an interesting idea to consider, although probably not a perfect solution to the crime of shoplifting in Evanston. But picturing this plan in action, a squad of elders scaring away sticky-fingered teenagers, caused me to laugh out loud. My seatmate chided me with what I hoped was a friendly, "What are you laughing about?" I was a little embarrassed, so after the event ended, I turned to her and said, "I'm sorry for laughing." And she said, chuckling to herself, "I'm always the one laughing at church. Whenever someone else is the one laughing at church, I want to sit by them." We discovered that in addition to our love of laughing in church, we both also know and love the artist Mary Dudek. It can be hard to come out of our comfortable bubbles and make a connection with a stranger. But I'll bet if I asked you to think of the last time you had a pleasant exchange with someone you didn't know, other than here this morning, I'll bet you'd come up with something from the not-too-distant past. According to Bell Hooks, the love we make in community stays with us wherever we go. In other words, these brief encounters of kindness are not wasted or meaningless moments. They remain in us and between us as reminders of the presence of love in community wherever we are. The practice of random acts of connection adds to our capacity to love the stranger and builds our fortitude to love more deeply in all areas of our lives. It can help us to hold on to the fragile tendrils of community, no matter how frayed they become. For the last 4 years or so, I lost connection with someone very close to me, and I didn't know why. I reached out in multiple ways over the years, but never got a reply. It was devastating, and I went through lots of stages of doubting myself, wondering what I'd done wrong, of hurt and anger, and almost giving up. But some little thread of hope, of the memory of love, stayed with me, and I just kept trying while remaining protective of my tender heart. I'd send a text to say hello, leave a message on their birthday. One day a few weeks ago, they called out of the blue and basically said, "I'm sorry, it was all me. I love you." I can't tell you how much this meant, how much it filled my heart. I still don't know what caused the break. I know we'll talk about it sometime soon, but I'm grateful for the call of love within me that urged me to remain open to possibility. Bell Hooks talks about a similar experience in her family of not accepting estrangement as the only response to the pain of rejection. I want to repeat that. Not accepting estrangement as the only response to the pain of rejection. The possibility of reconnection, of mending broken ties, builds our resilience and our practice of creating loving and life-affirming community. Revolutionary love demands of us a commitment to remain open always to love's transforming possibilities. I close with an excerpt from Mark Nepo's poem titled In Love with the World, which speaks of the dance of heartbreak and heart opening. He writes, I pray to keep falling in love with everyone I meet, with every child's eye, with every fallen being getting up. Like a worm cut into the heart only grows another heart. When the cut in my mind heals, I grow another mind. Birds migrate and caribou circle the cold top of the world. Perhaps we migrate between love and suffering, making our wounded, joyous cries. Alone, then together. Alone, then together. Oh, praise the soul's migration. I fall, I get up, I run from you, I look for you. I am again in love with the world. Thus ends Mark Nepo's poem. Beloveds, let us keep practicing the sweet labor of being in love with the world, of being in love with power, implementing the demands of justice, and justice correcting everything that stands against love. You are mine. I am yours. We belong to each other. Let us care for each other, ourselves, our loved ones, strangers, and opponents, in ways that honor that truth that we are all one. May it be so. May we make it so. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I would now like to invite our song leaders back up to guide us in singing our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. We will be singing all 3 verses, and after we have finished, please remain standing for our Chalice, Extinguishing, and Benediction. Now please rise. And now we have Carol Hawkins back up to extinguish our chalice. May we remain forever open to the transformative power of this community and the possibilities of love. Go making peace. Amen.